welcome to the EQ Video Tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter. Thanks again for watching another edition of the EQ Video Tip. Before we jump in, as always, let's review the goals of EQ Video Tip. What's on tap for today? Well, the second half of Bill Murphy Jr.'s toxic phrases that intelligent or emotionally intelligent people try to avoid and why we try to avoid them. We got some great tips last week from Bill, I should say, and now we're going to finish the last 4 that he has for us. Let's jump in and see what Bill has in store. Tip number 1, I know how you're feeling. Now, there's well-intention for this and well-meaning behind it, but it carries a lot of unintended and counterproductive meaning because you actually don't know how someone else feels, even though you think you might under the best circumstances. We all know this because we've been there before and we've said we're sad or we're upset or angry, but we don't really know how someone else is feeling in that same moment. A better choice of words might be, I'm trying to understand how you feel. Again, there may be well-meaning behind I know how you feel, but it's better to try to say, I'm trying to understand you, because you'll never feel exactly like someone else. Tip number 2, I don't want to fight. Well, actually, I guess you probably do want to fight. You're just confusing the issue because the other person gets that there's conflict here and you actually want to fight with them. The irony is by saying that you don't want to fight, you probably will make it more likely that you are going to fight. And if you do want to fight till the end, you're probably going to be even more focused and more likely to win if you say, hey, I think we're in disagreement here, as opposed to saying, I don't want to fight. Tip number 3, it's just not our policy. Well, guess what? That's kind of a passive-aggressive way to say, I'm going to leave you with toxic feelings, because policies change. We all know that, and the person you're talking to may not have the power to do that, but if they say it's not our policy, well, who has the power to change that policy? The better, simpler way to put it is, I'm not in a position to help, or perhaps more accurately, you've decided not to help. By saying, hey, I'm not in a position to help you, that's okay, but someone else might be, that gives a better signal to that person. Our last tip, you always, you never. It's really hard to act in an always or never type situation. People don't always do something. They don't always jump to conclusions, or they never listen. And these are phrases that are born from frustration. I know many times I'll say, oh, you always do this, or you never do that when I'm frustrated with maybe my children or a friend or a coworker. But you have to take a moment and pause and think about the irony of this phrase, because the more you say, hey, you never listen, the less that person is likely to listen. Or the more you say, you always jump to conclusions, that person's already jumping to a conclusion. Instead, it's important to say, hey, I want you to take a moment to think about this. Or before we get into this discussion, take a pause to just listen to the argument that we have brought forth. Whatever it might be, try to avoid the words always and never going forward. That's a wrap for this week's EQ Video Tip. This double feature has a lot of phrases that we tend to use sometimes even when we don't even realize it. It's okay if that happens, but try to avoid these phrases so you become more emotionally intelligent and connect with others. Again, we're all going to make a mistake and say something like I always or you never, or phrases that we didn't mean to, but that's okay. Learn from them and grow, as well as make sure you try to avoid them on a day-to-day basis. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.